Patrick Peterson speaks again. Would Sean Payton fit in the desert? And I'm going to ask my boy Cam Cox how insane I am from one of my segments yesterday.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in Friday, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here, still on location. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Yesterday, I went through Hard Knocks in-season episode 4. If you missed that show, check it out, free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Bullet points. DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown need to remain Arizona Cardinals for the foreseeable future, even if that means giving them $50 million combined. The Cardinals don't do things normally. That would just be another thing. Number 2, Kliff Kingsbury should be the new quarterbacks coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I explain before you eviscerate me. Go check it out. I make a very compelling argument. And number 3, we're starting to see the unlocking of Isaiah Simmons. It's taking a couple years, but just like Byron Murphy, we see that people can bloom a little bit later than what the NFL and what teams would like them to do. So check that out. Today's going to be really fun. Let's bring him in, this rascal. Cameron Cox, 12 News. One of my buddies. How's it going, dude?
Rascal. What's up, man? Rascal over here just hanging out, doing rascal
working
things.
Working hard. All right, so I wanted to have you on today for a couple of reasons. First of all, tag the partnership, 12 News, Locked On Podcast Network. I want to talk to you about some important topics that I haven't hit yet, and we haven't touched base really that much this season. I do want to talk. I'm going to talk Patrick Peterson.
It's been depressing, Alex. It's been depressing.
It has. It hasn't been as fun as 7-0, 10-2, and a playoff appearance. Let's put it that way. Patrick Peterson ran his mouth again on with his podcast with Brian McFadden. Kyler Murray clapped back. We're going to talk about that briefly. I don't want to give it as much run as other people do.
Sure.
Number 2, Sean Payton. Would he be a good fit, hypothetically speaking, if Kliff Kingsbury gets fired, which he most likely will not? And then if he does, could you see a world where Sean Payton's the head coach and Kliff Kingsbury's the quarterback's coach? I will explain in the final segment. It'll be brief.
Stirring it up. I like that's why I like talking with you, Alex.
It's right around Thanksgiving, man.
An idea that I didn't think about. I appreciate you being different, man. I do.
I do what I can.
I might not agree, but I appreciate you being different.
Yeah, usually don't. That's fantastic. That's how I want it to be. So Patrick Peterson went on his podcast with Brian McFadden and said Kyler Murray only cares about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray quote tweeted, I think it was the Pro Football Focus graphic of it, that pretty much said, listen, you for somebody who's supposed to be a big brother and a mentor, you kind of drag me down while trying to bring your podcast up. I'm paraphrasing. Like, these are two very polar opposite players and their plight with the Arizona Cardinals. Patrick Peterson started Hollywood, La La Land, and everything was great, and he was going to be an Arizona Cardinal forever, then requested a trade, PEDs, and then this is where we are in Minnesota. Kyler Murray, 2 great years, you would say, in the middle, like growing, and then this year is kind of taking a step back, plateaued. Who do you think is telling the truth? If
both.
You had to get, do you think so?
Both. So backtrack a little bit. When P2 was here and the beginning of Kyler, the end of P2 here, when they overlapped, it was coming off veteran Cardinal teams who have been through it, who were hoping to quickly rebuild, and that just wasn't going to happen toward the end of Patrick's time here when they overlapped with Kyler Murray. Pat multiple times called himself a big bro and a mentor to Kyler while he was here, while they were here together. But I will say there are a lot of people early on in Kyler's career, and I'm sure Kyler would admit this. I'm sure other people like Pat would admit this, that Kyler needed to grow up in a way, and he gave off some of those vibes. So I can see Pat in some ways still having that kind of mindset about him, still having that, maybe he doesn't always care about everybody in the locker room vibe about him. Kyler has changed, though. He has grown up. So I want to give him credit for that. He's grown up in a lot of different ways. He's grown up as a leader. He's grown up as a mentor. Does he still have some things he needs to work on? Yes. Would some of his teammates probably agree with that? Yes. He's still very young. He came here and he's basically been given everything on a silver spoon his entire career. And now his career is hard for the first time in his entire life. So that all comes with a lot of different growing pains. But I will say this, to say Kyler doesn't care about anyone else besides himself is inaccurate at its core. You can have some beef with him. You can have things didn't go right when you were here type of thing, that he can be better at certain things. Sure. But to just say that for face value is not true. I point to two recent examples. There are many of recent examples that you could go to where that shows Kyler has grown up and cares about other people besides himself. But just two recent ones here. In Mexico City, we were walking to the locker room. He and DeAndre Hopkins and assistant head coach Sean Jefferson were all meeting outside the locker room. Asked D-Hop what that conversation was about. He said the future. Kyler called the meeting to talk about when he gets healthy, things they want to do, winning, and how the future is going to look with them moving forward. Kyler did that after the Mexico City loss because they're going to play the Niners again, things he saw just trying to explain to Diop and Sean Jefferson. So Kyler does stuff like that all the time. Also in Mexico City, he finally fulfilled a promise to a young boy who was battling cancer 2 years ago, used Kyler as his inspiration to beat cancer, and promised they would get together at some point, promised they would hang out, invited his entire family out to the game in Mexico, and played catch with them on the field. 2 years later, fulfilled a promise, called him his big bro, called it the best part of his Mexico City trip. Those are just two recent examples where that's Kyler Murray being unselfish and caring about others. So I just don't take Pat's comment at face value. Pat is still very bitter. I like Patrick Peterson. He was always good to me here in Arizona. But at the end of the day, I think he's still bitter about how things went down here. That's not going to change. Can Kyler Murray certainly develop and grow as a leader and a person? Yes. But to say that he doesn't care about anybody else is just not true.
Yeah, agreed. Well put. Thank you for the insight on that. And I agree. There are guys like Patrick Mahomes who ruined the curve for everybody. I talk about it a lot. Like he automatically just came in and he was a 10-year vet right away. I think some of that has to do with.
But that was flipped. Patrick Mahomes struggled. Like he wasn't like Kyler's best high school quarterback ever come out of Texas.
Right.
Unbelievable stats throughout his entire life. Now his career is hard.
Right.
Pat Mahomes went to Texas Tech. They won 50% of their games. Yeah. He wasn't Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. He developed into that. So it just kind of flipped like that. You know what I mean? Everybody has to go through that.
So you're saying imagine what life would be like without Kliff Kingsbury, what Kyler Murray could do like what Patrick Mahomes has done. I see what you're saying there, even though you didn't say it. Cameron Cox at CamCox12 on Twitter. So we hit that, and I agree. Like Patrick Peterson.
It's tough to recruit to Lubbock, okay? You've been to Lubbock, Texas. It's tough to recruit there.
I mean, I don't want to go anywhere in Texas. I got no problem. I'm going to stay in California. I got nothing good to say about Texas.
All right.
But there's that inherent hate between California and Texas for no reason whatsoever. But I'm here for it. I'm here for the pettiness. It's fun. Patrick Peterson putting a button on it. Inconsequential, whatever he says about the Arizona Cardinals to me.
And he backtracked a little bit today. We're waiting to get the sound here in just a little bit. But apparently that he kind of said he meant no disrespect. Like, really, bro, you said that. You meant no. And then the graphic on the podcast was something K1 selfish, something like that. Like, come on, man. I know what you were trying to do. And Kyler was right, trying to build your podcast, kick a man while he's down in a way. He kind of backtracked, said meant no disrespect. Apparently didn't have Kyler's number, got it from an ex-teammate, wonder who that is, and reached out to Kyler, and Kyler has not texted him back as of yet. That's what Patrick said at his locker today. So there you go.
Can I pull a who cares when it comes to Patrick Peterson? Or is it too – he's not an Arizona Cardinal. Doesn't like – he cheated. He left his team out to dry after he had requested a trade. I feel like that's 2 strikes and you're out. Inconsequential, in my opinion. Something that's very consequential is Kliff Kingsbury, the contract extension that he and Steve Keim were given before the season started, because lame duck quarterback has now looked like it's a bad thing instead of having a lame duck head coach. Instead of having a head coach prove that he deserves another contract, Michael Bidwell didn't go that way. What if Sean Payton's the next coach of the Arizona Cardinals? Let's talk. I want to hear Cam Cox. I want to hear if he thinks it's possible. I want to hear if he thinks it's a good idea. I'll talk about it next. First, this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. Find Think Like a Champion now wherever you get your podcasts. Think Like a Champion. Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Russell Wilson, alongside co-hosts Harry Wilson and the late Trevor Molwad, dig really into high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders and how they push the boundaries of their potential. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and business leaders, available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game. Sean Payton's name It's fascinating what has happened. And I will give credit. I will give credit to Johnny Venerable. I'm not going to tell you what podcast he's on, but he's one of my boys, and he found this clip on the Herd with Colin Cowherd with Sean Payton with Colin Cowherd talking about how he used to be a ball boy for the Cardinals organization before they moved to Arizona. Now, Sean Payton has said multiple times he doesn't want to go to a losing organization, an organization that hasn't won before. And it's interesting because the Arizona Cardinals roster right now has the pieces to win tomorrow. And that's the issue.
It's healthy.
Healthy. Right. When it's healthy, right. One of the things that I constantly say on this podcast is the only problem that's bigger than having a problem is not knowing why you have the problem. And I feel like that's what's been marring the Cardinals this season, where it's like you could point a million different directions. The root is a mystery. But I feel like with Sean Payton, he has the pedigree. He took a perennially losing organization to new heights with an undersized quarterback. Now, Cam Cox, if this position becomes vacant, okay, with Steve Keim still at his post, because he's going to have that Bill Self contract. He ain't getting fired ever, it seems like. Would Sean Payton come in without entire creative control when it comes to personnel on the team?
That's interesting. I've heard a few different things on that. The first one is probably not. Sean Payton is a guy who's going to want to do it his way. But then again, Michael did hire BA, so BA did it his way in a sense. Mm-hmm. And so maybe they can come to some common ground on that. I just want to paraphrase any conversation about Sean Payton. I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe they're going to fire Kliff anytime soon. It just is what it is. Too many things have gone wrong for this team this year, where nothing seemed to ever get off the ground, ever fit right, from training camp to the beginning of the season to during the season. Just nothing seemed to fit or have any sort of peace or any sort of whatever. And so I think they're all going to get a second run at it. If the position became available, they would be dumb not to find a way to get Sean Payton here. I'll say this from a development sense of a quarterback standpoint and an offense. He would make Kyler Murray do things never done before in his career. And I think that would be massively huge for Murray's development, for his next step as a quarterback. This offense that they run now, it's not the most complex thing in the world. Pretty easy at the NFL level to operate, to do the schemes. I think Sean Payton could take Murray to the next level. I'm not saying I don't think Kliff can. I'm just saying when it comes to Sean Payton, if that position became available, he would be a guy that would unlock something or give Murray the chance to unlock some things that he has never done in his career that could possibly make him that elite quarterback we all think he could be.
Noel, don't you think that we would have seen Kliff be able to do it already? It's been over 50 games.
Yeah, you are what you are in the National Football League. They've not been good last 20 games, something like that. It's just not, they are who they are. And this season especially, I think you've seen their inability to not evolve and just kind of point to this and that and this and that instead of trying to really work with what they got and make the most of it. They've said that, but they've not been able to do that. And so it'll just be interesting how it all plays out moving forward. I think they all come back and get another year at least. But as far as Sean Payton is concerned, I think he's a creative guy that could take this offense to the next level. I think that's pretty much a given.
At Cam Cox 12 on Twitter, Cameron Cox, one of my boys over 12 News, Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. I went rogue yesterday, but I can back up my point. Okay, just like when I said this offseason that Vance Joseph would be the scapegoat if things went wrong. You're starting to see that they gave up the most points in the NFL. Oh, we can definitely fashion something to make it look like it's his fault. I don't look so crazy now, do I? Cam? A little bit less. Give me like 1% less crazy.
1% less crazy. I don't think they're going to find, like I said, I just don't think, knowing Michael the way we do, I don't think there's a scapegoat. I think the scapegoat is all you could call them excuses. You can call them everything that's happened. That's the scapegoat. If people are looking for something like, what is the Arizona Cardinals fall back on all this? It's like the laundry list of things that have happened to this team this year. And I don't know if it's different or not different from other teams, but that's exactly what you could point to as the scapegoat, is that they have had ABCD, all those things happen. And I think that's what's going to get them to next year.
We live in an alternate universe in segment 3 of Locked on Cardinals where I make my greatest attempt to Will Ferrell it on Old School against the Raging Cajun that is going to be taken the place by Cameron Cox next. I like to go local here. Sunwave, mysolarnerd.com. If you live in the Valley, if you live in Arizona, and you want to go to solar, My Solar Nerd's mission is simple. Help you get the best solar to fit your needs. Okay. The guys at mysolarnerd.com are local. They understand the nuances of going solar in Arizona. Sometimes you have companies that aren't local. They offer free solar. The truth is many of these companies, because they aren't local, they use misleading tactics and end up overcharging homeowners. MySolarNerd.com, they don't do that. They firmly believe that if you live in Arizona, switching to solar should mean saving money. Once you're ready, they'll put their industry knowledge to work by choosing the best equipment, warranties, and Better Business Bureau accredited installers. Our listeners will get a $50 Amazon gift card when they book a no-commitment evaluation. Remember, this promotion is only for listeners that are homeowners. Visit mysolarnerd.com, select Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us section. Make the switch to solar on your terms. Start your research process by visiting mysolarnerd.com and show Locked On some love by letting them know we sent you. Folks, going solar doesn't need to be complicated. mysolarnerd.com makes it easy. All right. Here we go. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Cameron Cox, nice enough to join me. Middle of his busy work day to talk Cardinals. We talked Patrick Peterson versus Kyler Murray, non-story. That's a story that's like bye-week story. It's like if the Cardinals were off and running, first of all, Patrick Peterson probably wouldn't have said anything because he likes.
He didn't last year. He didn't last year.
No, because people weren't talking about him in Minnesota. He needs to be in the spotlight from time to time when the Arizona Cardinals get discussed. So I had this theory, I had this thought yesterday, okay? And I'm going to make this very succinct. I think that if the Cardinals fire Kliff Kingsbury, they should make him the next quarterback's coach. And let me explain why. They have to pay him no matter what, okay? Number one. Number two, he was brought in, even though it's not a direct correlative, he was hired. They drafted Kyler Murray. Oh, Josh Rosen's supposed to be the guy. Give me a break. Okay? Take with that as you wish. He was brought in to coach Kyler Murray, in my humblest of opinions. Let him do what he was hired to do, specifically. That's it. So, what if he gets another NFL job? He won't next year, number one. Number two, what if he goes back to college? You're already getting paid however much money he's getting paid for the contract extension. Why would you want to go on the recruiting trail? Why would you want to do all that stuff? You stay in the NFL pool. You don't have to go to Alabama for the reclamation project of being Nick Saban's OC. You stay with the organization. He doesn't have the ego to where it's like there's going to be a power struggle in the locker room. The players like him, and all he has to do is be a beef bouillon cube before it hits the water and just concentrate on making Kyler Murray a better quarterback. Tell me that's not a rational thought, even though he'd be the highest paid quarterback coach in the history of football times 1,000. But they're going to have to pay him anyways. So if they fire him at the end of the year, why not get more juice for your squeeze?
I don't know if Kliff would do that, to be honest with you. It makes, you could say that makes sense, but I don't think Kliff would want to do that, one. I don't think the Cardinals would want to do that, two, especially if you have a coach who comes in. It's just a totally different offense. Like, Kliff is not going to be running his offense to stay. He would run Sean Payton's offense. He would run something else.
No, I'm not even saying OC. I'm not saying any play.
What I'm saying is he would have to teach another offense. That's not his. That's not something he's taught his entire life. Coaching quarterbacks obviously makes sense because he's done it his whole career. He's always kind of been very involved with the quarterbacks. I don't see that happening by any means. I'll say this. The man is not going back to college.
Right.
He's had a taste of NFL life. There is not a chance he goes back to college. And I think could get an NFL job tomorrow. He's got enough friends in the NFL who think very highly of him. If he was fired tomorrow, Sean McVay, Zach Taylor, you go down the list, Kyle Shanahan, somebody would hire Kliff Kingsbury on their staff tomorrow. If he
to
was
bring
fired.
in this offense?
I don't know if it's bringing this offense or position coach, but he would have a job in the NFL tomorrow if he was fired today. They wouldn't pay him what it's paying him now. I don't think he'd get another head coaching job. I don't even think he'd probably get an OC job right off the rip. But he would have a job at the NFL tomorrow if he was fired from the Cardinals. Somebody would bring him on staff.
Cameron Cox at CamCox12 on Twitter. Thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals.
The idea wasn't terrible.
No, but it's just And my preface before all of it was the most important thing was they hired him to begin with. So we're living in la la land to begin. Like the rudimentary way that Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim do their business allows for other conversations that wouldn't necessarily be had with different organizations. And I thrive in that during bye weeks because what the hell else are we going to talk about? Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I will talk to you on Monday.